At 0642 on September 19, 1944, Sergeant Henry Hartman crouched in the turret of his M18 Hellcat tank destroyer 3 miles east of Arracourt, France, watching dense fog roll across the fields ahead, knowing the German 5th Panzer Army was somewhere out there with orders to destroy his battalion. 24 years old, 47 days in combat, 6 German vehicles destroyed. Intelligence reported the 113th Panzer Brigade moving toward their position with 45 brand new Panther tanks, each one carrying 5.5 inches of frontal armor that could stop any American tank round at any range. Hartman's M18 had exactly 1 inch of armor, maximum. The thickest plate on the entire vehicle measured 25 millimeters. The hull floor was less than 5 millimeters thick. A German machine gun could punch through the sides. The open-topped turret left the crew exposed to grenades, mortars, and snipers. Tank crews across 3rd Army called the M18 the paper coffin, the death trap, the fastest way to die in France. But it was fast. 55 miles per hour on open road, twice the speed of a Sherman, 3 times faster than a Tiger. The Army's tank destroyer doctrine demanded speed over armor, hit and run, flank and kill, never stand and fight. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion had landed at Utah Beach 68 days earlier, as the first unit in Europe equipped with M18s. They were supposed to be the answer to German armor: mobile, lethal, aggressive. In 68 days, they had knocked out 93 German vehicles. They had also lost 18 M18s destroyed and 22 damaged. 41 men killed, 73 wounded. The math was brutal. German tanks killed American tank destroyers, Panthers especially. The Panther's 75mm gun could penetrate an M18 from 2,000 meters. The M18's 76mm gun could not penetrate a Panther's front armor at any range, not even at point blank. The only way to kill a Panther was to hit the thinner side or rear armor, which meant getting close, which meant dying. Hartman commanded a 5-man crew: driver, assistant driver, gunner, loader, commander. All 5 men knew the odds. 3rd Army intelligence estimated that 40% of all tank destroyer crews became casualties within 90 days of landing in France. The 704th was already past that average. Company C had lost 6 M18s in the last 3 weeks, 19 men killed, 8 wounded. The company started with 12 tank destroyers. They were down to 10 operational vehicles. Battalion headquarters kept promising replacements. The replacements never came. Every morning brought new names on the casualty list. Every afternoon brought orders to advance. The Germans knew American tank destroyers were vulnerable. Panther crews were trained to target M18s first, kill the fast vehicles, eliminate the threat, then deal with the slower Shermans. German tankers called the M18 the Blechbuchse, the tin can. If you want to see how Hartman's paper-thin tank survived against German steel, please hit that like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories from the war. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Hartman. The fog thickened. Visibility dropped to 30 feet. Radio crackled. Lieutenant Edwin Leeper's voice came through. German armor spotted. Panthers moving toward Richicourt-La Petite. Company C ordered forward. Hartman's platoon would take point. 4 M18s, 45 Panthers. Dense fog. And Hartman's thin armor was about to face the most feared tank in the German army at point-blank range. Hartman's M18 rolled forward at 0658. The engine roared. 9 cylinders. Continental R975 radio. Same engine as a Sherman, but pushing half the weight. The Hellcat accelerated faster than any tracked vehicle in the war. That speed was supposed to keep them alive. Lieutenant Leeper's platoon moved in formation. 4 M18s, spacing 20 meters. The fog was so thick Hartman could barely see the vehicle ahead. The road led northeast toward Richicourt-La Petite. Intelligence reported German armor massing near the village. 5th Panzer Army was launching a counterattack to push 3rd Army back across the Moselle River. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion was attached to the 4th Armored Division. 4th Armored was spearheading General Patton's drive into Germany. They had crossed the Moselle 2 weeks earlier. They had liberated Luneville. They were threatening Nancy. And now the Germans were counterattacking with 2 fresh Panzer Brigades, the 111th and 113th. 90 Panthers total, brand new from the factory. Crews barely trained, but the tanks were deadly. The Panther was 45 tons of German engineering, sloped frontal armor, long-barreled 75mm gun, maximum road speed 29 miles per hour, range 125 miles. The gun could kill a Sherman at 3,000 meters. The armor could stop American tank rounds at point-blank range. Most American tank crews feared the Panther more than the Tiger. The M18 was different. 19 tons, open turret, 76mm gun. Speed, 55 miles per hour. Range, 150 miles. The designers sacrificed everything for mobility. The armor was so thin that crew survival depended entirely on not getting hit. Tank destroyer doctrine called for ambush tactics. Find a position, wait for German armor, fire from cover, destroy the target, relocate before return fire arrived. But doctrine assumed visibility, clear fields of fire, time to maneuver. The fog eliminated all of that. Hartman's crew would see German tanks at 30 feet, maybe less. At that range, even a Panther's machine gun could penetrate the M18's armor. The crew compartment would become a death trap. The platoon reached a crossroads at 0712. Leaper's M18 took the lead position. Hartman's vehicle moved second. 2 more Hellcats followed. They advanced slowly, 15 miles per hour. The fog showed no sign of lifting. Hartman checked his ammunition. 45 rounds, mix of armor-piercing and high-explosive. The armor-piercing rounds used the M62 shell. Solid shot, no explosive filler. The M62 could penetrate 88mm of armor at 1,000 meters. Against the Panther's frontal plate, the round would bounce. Against the side armor, it might penetrate. Against the rear, it would kill. The key was angle. The M18 had to hit the Panther from the side or rear, which meant maneuvering, which meant exposing the thin armor to German guns. Every tank destroyer crew in Europe knew the equation: speed versus armor, mobility versus protection. The M18 bet everything on speed. The radio crackled again. Contact front, German armor, range unknown, visibility 30 feet. Leaper's voice came through steady. All vehicles hold position. Prepare to engage. Hartman stared into the fog. Somewhere ahead, Panther tanks were moving toward them. The fastest tank destroyer in the war was about to fight the most heavily armored tank in Europe at point-blank range and zero visibility. At 0719, Leaper spotted a gun barrel, 30 feet ahead, emerging from the fog, a Panther. The German tank was moving slowly, searching for targets. The crew had no idea 4 American tank destroyers were waiting in the mist. Leaper deployed his platoon. Hand signals, no radio traffic. The 4 M18s spread out. 20-meter spacing became 40 meters. Each Hellcat picked a firing position. Hartman's driver maneuvered left, 10 meters, then stopped. The gunner traversed the turret. The loader slammed an armor-piercing round into the breech. The Panther kept advancing, 25 feet. The German commander stood in his cupola, scanning the fog, looking for American positions. He never saw the M18s. Leaper fired first. The 76mm gun cracked. The armor-piercing round hit the Panther's side armor at 90 degrees. Perfect angle. The shell penetrated. The German tank lurched. Smoke poured from the engine deck. The crew bailed out. 3 men. Running into the fog. 5 seconds later, a second Panther appeared. Same direction, same slow advance. The German tankers had no idea their lead vehicle was burning. Hartman's gunner fired. The round hit low, penetrated the running gear. The Panther stopped. Track destroyed. The turret began to traverse, looking for the threat. Hartman's loader already had another round ready. The gunner fired again. This time the shell hit the turret ring. The Panther's turret jammed. The crew abandoned the vehicle. 2 Panthers destroyed. 2 minutes. 0 American casualties. Then the fog shifted, wind from the east, visibility increased to 50 feet, and Hartman saw what they were facing. Panthers, dozens of them, spread across the field. The entire 113th Panzer Brigade was advancing toward Rechicourt-la-Petite. The German tanks were moving in column formation. No flanking security, no reconnaissance, just a straight advance through the fog. The Panther commanders couldn't see more than 30 feet. They had no idea American tank destroyers were already in position. The 113th Panzer Brigade was driving blind into an ambush. Leeper's platoon opened fire. 4 M18s. Rapid engagement. The Hellcats fired from different positions. The Germans couldn't locate the source of the incoming rounds. Panther after Panther took hits. Side armor, rear armor, engine decks, ammunition storage. The German tanks began exploding. The 113th tried to return fire. Panther guns swung towards suspected American positions. But the fog made targeting impossible. German rounds flew wild. High explosive shells detonated in empty fields. Armor-piercing rounds disappeared into the mist. Not one German round found an M18. Hartman's crew worked fast. The loader could cycle rounds in 8 seconds. Armor-piercing. High explosive. Armor-piercing. The gunner tracked targets through the fog. Range 30 to 60 feet. Point blank. Every shot penetrated. The M18's thin armor didn't matter at this range, because the Germans couldn't see them to shoot back. By 07:24, Leeper's platoon had knocked out 15 German tanks. 5 minutes of combat. 15 Panthers destroyed. 3 M18s lost. Not to German fire, to mechanical failure and friendly artillery. But Hartman's vehicle was still fighting. Then the radio crackled. Company C moving up. Captain Tom Evans bringing 2 more platoons. 8 additional M18s. The Germans were about to face the entire company, and Hartman had just spotted 6 more Panthers emerging from the fog, heading straight toward his position. 6 against 1, 30 feet of visibility, and his loader had 23 rounds left. Hartman made a decision. Attack. The M18's speed was useless in fog. Armor meant nothing at this range. The only advantage was surprise. The Germans didn't know where he was. He could see them. They couldn't see him. His driver accelerated. The Hellcat surged forward, 30 miles per hour through the fog. The 6 Panthers were moving in single file, 50-foot spacing between vehicles, standard German column formation. The lead Panther was 70 feet ahead. Hartman's gunner acquired the target. First shot, 07:26. Range, 60 feet. Side armor. The round penetrated just behind the turret. The Panther stopped. Smoke. The crew bailed out. The other 5 Panthers kept moving. They hadn't heard the shot over their own engine noise. Hartman's M18 shifted position, 20 feet right. The driver kept the engine running, ready to move again. The second Panther appeared. Hartman's gunner fired. 8 seconds from the previous shot. The armor-piercing round hit the Panther's running gear. Track destroyed. The German tank lurched sideways. Stopped. The turret began to traverse. Too slow. Hartman's loader had another round ready. The gunner fired again. Turret ring. The Panther's gun froze mid-traverse. 2 down. 4 Panthers still moving forward, still blind in the fog. The M18 relocated. 40 feet forward, 10 feet left. The driver positioned the tank destroyer behind a low stone wall. Minimal cover, but enough to break the vehicle's silhouette in the fog. The third Panther rolled past, 20 feet away, completely unaware. Hartman's gunner waited, let the German tank pass, then fired into the rear armor. The weakest point, 18 millimeters of steel. The M62 round punched through, detonated the ammunition. The Panther exploded. 3 down, 3 Panthers remaining. The 4th Panther commander finally realized something was wrong. His radio crackled. German voices. Confused. Urgent. The column had lost 3 tanks in 90 seconds. No visible enemy. No return fire. Just explosions in the fog. The Panther stopped. The turret rotated, searching for targets. Hartman's driver moved the M18 again. Full speed. The Hellcat circled right. 50 feet. The gunner kept the German tank in sight. Waited for the angle. The Panther's side armor came into view. The gunner fired. Direct hit. The German tank began burning. 4 down. 2 Panthers left. The remaining German tanks panicked. Both Panthers reversed. Fast. German doctrine called for immediate withdrawal when ambushed. fall back, regroup, call for support. But reversing in fog was deadly. The two Panthers couldn't see where they were going. Hartman's M18 pursued, 30 miles per hour, closing distance. The 5th Panther backed into a drainage ditch. The tank tilted, stuck. The crew tried to rock the vehicle free. Forward, reverse, forward. The Panther's engine screamed. Hartman's gunner fired, side shot. The armor-piercing round penetrated the fuel tank. The Panther erupted in flames. 5 down, 1 Panther remaining. The last German tank was retreating faster now, 40 feet, 50 feet, disappearing into the fog. Hartman's driver gave chase. The M18 could hit 55 miles per hour in ideal conditions. In fog, on rough ground, they managed 35. Enough to close the gap. The Panther came back into view, 60 feet, still reversing. The commander was standing in the cupola, looking backward, trying to navigate blind. Hartman's gunner fired. The round hit the Panther's rear armor, penetrated the engine compartment. The German tank stopped. Dead. The crew abandoned the vehicle, 6 men running into the fog. 6 Panthers destroyed. Hartman's M18, 4 minutes of combat, 23 rounds down to 17. 0 damage to the Hellcat. And somewhere in the fog, 30 more German tanks were still advancing toward Company C's position. Captain Tom Evans arrived with Company C at 0732. 8 more M18s, 12 tank destroyers total. The fog was starting to lift. Visibility increased to 100 feet, and everyone could see the battlefield. Burning Panthers, 21 of them, spread across 300 meters, black smoke rising into the morning sky. German crews scattered across the fields, some wounded, some surrendering, most running east toward their own lines. The 113th Panzer Brigade had driven straight into an ambush and lost half a company in 12 minutes. But the Germans weren't retreating. More Panthers were advancing. The 113th had started the morning with 45 tanks. 21 were destroyed, 24 were still operational, and those 24 were spreading out, trying to flank Company C's position. Evans deployed his tank destroyers in a defensive arc, 12 M18s, 400 meters wide. Each Hellcat had a designated kill zone, overlapping fields of fire. The fog was burning off fast. By 0800, visibility would be 500 meters, long enough for Panther guns to be effective, long enough for German gunners to target the M18's thin armor. The math had changed. At 300 meters, a Panther could penetrate an M18 anywhere, front, side, rear. The 1-inch armor was useless. But at 300 meters, an M18 could penetrate a Panther's side armor. Not the front, never the front, but the sides were vulnerable, and Company C had 12 guns. The Germans attacked at 0748, 24 Panthers, 3 columns, 8 tanks per column. The center column drove toward Company C's position. The left and right columns tried to envelop the American flanks. Standard German armor tactics: pin the enemy, flank them, destroy them. Evans had prepared for this. His M18s weren't sitting still. Tank destroyer doctrine emphasized mobility. Fire and move, never stay in one position. The moment a Hellcat fired, the driver relocated. 20 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters. The Germans couldn't track the moving targets. Hartman's crew was exhausted. 4 minutes of intense combat, 6 Panthers destroyed. But they had 17 rounds left, and the battle was far from over. The gunner's hands were shaking. Adrenaline, fatigue. The loader's shoulder ached from cycling rounds. The driver's eyes burned from staring into fog. But they kept fighting. The first German column hit Company C's center position. 4 M18s opened fire. Range 250 meters. The Panthers returned fire immediately. 75mm guns. High-velocity armor-piercing rounds. The German shells were faster than American tank rounds, but the fog and smoke made targeting impossible. Most German shots missed. The American shots didn't miss. 12 M18s firing from different positions, moving constantly. The Germans couldn't establish firing solutions. Panther after Panther took hits. Side armor, track assemblies, engine decks. Two Panthers exploded when armor-piercing rounds detonated their ammunition. By 0800, the fog had lifted completely, visibility unlimited, and the scale of the German defeat became clear. 31 Panthers destroyed, 14 still fighting. Company C had lost 3 M18s, 2 to German fire, 1 to mechanical failure. 9 Hellcats remained operational. The 113th Panzer Brigade broke. The 14 surviving Panthers withdrew. Fast. The German tanks reversed, turned, fled east. American tank destroyers pursued. Range increased to 400 meters, 500 meters. The M18s kept firing. 2 more Panthers destroyed during the retreat. By 0815, the Battle of Arracourt-la-Petite was over. 33 German tanks destroyed, 14 escaped. Company C lost 3 M18s, 7 men killed, 11 wounded. And Sergeant Henry Hartman had personally destroyed 6 Panthers in 4 minutes of combat at point-blank range with a tank that had 1 inch of armor. But the 113th Panzer Brigade wasn't finished. Intelligence reported German reinforcements. The 111th Panzer Brigade, 45 more Panthers, moving toward Arracourt, and Company C was down to 9 operational tank destroyers. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion had proven something that morning. The M18 Hellcat could kill Panthers, not by trading armor for armor, not by matching gun for gun, but by using speed and maneuver. The German tanks were superior in every technical specification except velocity, and velocity had won. Battalion headquarters received the combat reports at 0900. 33 Panthers destroyed, 3 M18s lost. The kill-to-loss ratio was 11-1. No American tank unit in Europe had achieved those numbers against Panther tanks. Ever. Third Army intelligence wanted confirmation. Battalion commanders wanted proof. Some officers refused to believe the reports. Paper armor tank destroyers killing the most heavily armored tanks in the German military seemed impossible. Captain Evans provided evidence. Battlefield photographs, crew testimonies, ammunition counts. Hartman's M18 had fired 28 rounds, 6 Panthers destroyed. 22 rounds hit targets, 6 achieved kills. The efficiency was extraordinary. Most tank battles saw hit rates below 30%. Hartman's crew achieved 78%. The numbers convinced the skeptics, but they raised questions. How did tank destroyers with 1 inch of armor survive point-blank combat against Panthers? The answer was fog. Visibility limited to 30 feet. German gunners couldn't target what they couldn't see. American crews used the fog as armor. They maneuvered constantly, fired from unexpected angles, relocated before German guns could respond. Tank destroyer doctrine emphasized exactly this approach. Ambush tactics, rapid repositioning, never stand and fight. The M18 was designed for hit-and-run warfare. But most American commanders ignored tank destroyer doctrine. They used M18s like tanks, static positions, direct engagements, frontal assaults. That approach got crews killed. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion followed doctrine, and they survived. The Battle of Arracourt-la-Petite demonstrated another truth. Training mattered. The 113th Panzer Brigade crews were inexperienced. Most had fewer than 10 days in their Panthers. They didn't know how to fight in fog. They didn't maintain proper spacing. They didn't use reconnaissance. They drove in column formation through unknown terrain against an unseen enemy. Every mistake proved fatal. Company C crews were different. The 704th had trained for 18 months before landing in France. They practiced ambush tactics, rapid fire drills, emergency relocations. The loader teams could cycle rounds in 7 to 9 seconds. The drivers could execute combat maneuvers at full speed. The gunners could engage targets in zero visibility conditions using sound and movement. That training saved lives. But training couldn't overcome numbers. The 111th Panzer Brigade was approaching with 45 fresh Panthers. Intelligence reported the German tanks were 6 miles east, moving toward Arracourt. Expected contact by 1400 hours. Company C had 9 operational M18s. Battalion headquarters promised reinforcements. 2 platoons from Company A, 8 more Hellcats. But they wouldn't arrive until 1600 hours. Too late. Evans made a decision. Company C would delay the German advance, establish ambush positions between Arracourt-la-Petite and Arracourt. Use the same tactics that worked this morning. Hit and run. kill and relocate. 9 M18s against 45 Panthers. The math was worse than this morning, but the fog remained. Hartman's crew prepared for another engagement. 17 rounds remaining, 76mm armor piercing, high explosive. The gunner cleaned the barrel. The loader organized the ammunition. The driver checked the engine. Oil pressure normal. Fuel 3/4 full. Track tension good. The M18 was ready to fight again. At 11:30, reconnaissance reported German movement. Panthers, lots of them, advancing in spread formation, learning from this morning's mistakes. The 111th Panzer Brigade wasn't driving blind into an ambush. They were moving carefully, using scouts, maintaining spacing, and the fog was lifting. By noon, visibility reached 300 meters. The advantage Company C held this morning was gone. At 300 meters, German guns were lethal. Panther armor was nearly impenetrable from the front, and 9 American tank destroyers were about to face 45 of the best tanks Germany could field in broad daylight. The 111th Panzer Brigade attacked at 13:20. 45 Panthers, 3 battle groups, 15 tanks each. They advanced in line formation, 200-meter spacing between groups. The German commanders had studied this morning's disaster. They weren't repeating the 113th's mistakes. Company C occupied positions along a ridgeline west of Arracourt. 9 M18s, hull-down positions, only the turrets visible above the crest. Evans spread his tank destroyers across 800 meters, wide frontage, overlapping fields of fire. Each crew had designated kill zones and withdrawal routes. The moment they fired, they would reverse down the slope, relocate, find new positions. Hartman's M18 was positioned on the right flank. His field of fire covered the southern approach. Range to expected German positions, 400 meters. At that distance, the Panther's gun was accurate. The M18's armor was useless. One hit anywhere meant death. The crew knew it, but they also knew the Panther's weakness. The side armor was only 40 millimeters thick, angled at 30 degrees. An M62 armor-piercing round could penetrate at 400 meters if it hit perpendicular. The German tanks crossed the 400-meter line at 13:28. Company C held fire. Evans wanted the Panthers closer, 350 meters, 300 meters. At 250 meters, the M18s opened fire. 9 guns, simultaneous engagement. The first volley hit 6 Panthers, 3 kills, 3 mobility kills. The German advance stopped. The Panthers returned fire immediately. 45 guns, massive firepower. High explosive and armor-piercing rounds screamed toward the American positions. Most shots went high. The M18s were hull down, small targets. The German gunners were firing uphill, difficult angles. But 3 rounds found targets. 1 M18 destroyed, turret blown off, crew killed instantly. Another Hellcat damaged, track severed. The crew bailed out. 7 M18s remained operational. 42 Panthers still fighting. Evans ordered withdrawal. Phase 1 complete. Company C reversed down the slope. The M18s disappeared behind the ridge. Relocated 400 meters west. Found new hull-down positions. The entire maneuver took 90 seconds. When the German tanks crested the ridge, the American tank destroyers were gone. The Panthers advanced cautiously. The German commanders expected another ambush. They moved inbounds. 1 group advanced, while 2 provided overwatch. Standard armor tactics. Slow, methodical, professional. The 111th Panzer Brigade was well trained. At 13:45, the Germans reached the second ridgeline. Company C was waiting. 7 M18s, new positions, new angles. The Hellcats opened fire at 300 meters. The second volley destroyed 5 Panthers. 2 more mobility kills. The Germans responded with concentrated fire. 2 more M18s hit. 1 destroyed, 1 damaged. 5 M18s left, 35 Panthers operational. Evans pulled back again. Same tactic. Reverse, relocate, find cover. The M18s withdrew to pre-planned positions near Arracourt, urban terrain, buildings, narrow streets, close quarters. The Panthers would have to enter the town to finish the fight, and urban combat favored defenders. Hartman's crew had fired 11 rounds in the 2 engagements. 3 confirmed kills, 2 assists, 14 rounds remaining. The gunner's shoulder ached from the recoil. The loader's hands were blistered from handling hot shell casings. The driver's legs cramped from constant clutch work, but they kept fighting. The German attack reached Arracourt's outskirts at 14:30, 35 Panthers. Company C had 5 operational M18s. Battalion reinforcements hadn't arrived. The odds were 7-1, but the terrain had changed. Urban warfare, buildings, restricted movement, streets channeled advance routes, stone walls provided cover. The M18's speed advantage was neutralized. But so was the Panther's armor advantage. In close quarters, side shots were easier. Rear shots were possible. Evans positioned his 5 tank destroyers at key intersections, interlocking fire, escape routes through alleys. The Germans would have to advance down main streets, exposed flanks, vulnerable rear quarters. Company C would ambush each Panther group, kill as many as possible, withdraw before German reinforcements arrived. The first Panthers entered Arracourt at 14:42, 8 tanks, moving down Rue des Nancy. Hartman's M18 was positioned in an alley, perpendicular to the German advance. Perfect 90-degree angle. The lead Panther rolled past. Hartman's gunner waited, let 3 Panthers pass, then fired at the 4th tank. Side shot. 200 feet. The armor-piercing round penetrated. The Panther exploded, blocked the street, trapped the 3 Panthers behind it. Company C destroyed 6 Panthers in Arracourt's streets. Lost 1 M18. 4 Hellcats remained. 29 German tanks withdrew. The 111th Panzer Brigade had lost 16 tanks. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion had lost 6 M18s since dawn, but they had destroyed 49 Panthers in 1 day. General George Patton visited Company C's command post on September 20th. He wanted to see the tank destroyers that killed 49 Panthers in 1 day. Patton walked among the M18s, examined the thin armor, talked to the crews. He asked Hartman how a 1-inch tank destroyed 6 Panthers at point-blank range. Hartman told him the truth. Fog, speed, training, and luck. Patton promoted Captain Tom Evans to Major, awarded him the Distinguished Service Cross. The citation described Evans as fearless, tactical genius, leader who inspired his men through impossible odds. Evans tried to share credit with his crews. Patton refused. The commander earned the medal. But every man in Company C knew who really won the battle. The loaders who cycled rounds in 8 seconds, the gunners who hit targets in 0 visibility, the drivers who maneuvered under fire, and men like Hartman who destroyed 6 Panthers with a tank everyone called a death trap. The Battle of Arracourt continued for 3 more days, September 19th through 22nd. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion fought the entire 5th Panzer Army. German records confirmed the Americans destroyed 281 armored vehicles, Panthers, Panzer IVs, self-propelled guns, tank destroyers. The 704th lost 7 M18s, destroyed, 14 damaged, 23 men killed, 41 wounded. The kill ratio was 40-1. Military historians later called Arracourt the largest tank battle on the Western Front in 1944, larger than Normandy, larger than the Bulge engagements that came later. The Americans won decisively. German 5th Panzer Army withdrew. Patton's Third Army continued advancing toward Germany, and the M18 Hellcat earned its reputation as the most effective tank destroyer in Europe. Sergeant Henry Hartman survived the war. He fought with the 704th through France, Belgium, Germany. The battalion crossed the Rhine in March 1945, reached Czechoslovakia in May. Hartman's crew destroyed 14 German armored vehicles total, 6 at Arracourt, 8 in subsequent battles. He never suffered a wound. His M18 was hit 3 times, minor damage each time. The crew repaired the vehicle and kept fighting. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion was deactivated in November 1945. The men went home. Hartman returned to civilian life. He rarely discussed the war, never claimed hero status. When people asked about Arracourt, he emphasized his crew. 5 men working together. Training and teamwork won battles, not individual courage. The M18 Hellcat remained in service until 1953. The Army retired Tank Destroyer Battalions after the war. Future conflicts would use main battle tanks for anti-armor operations. But the Hellcat proved the doctrine worked. Speed could defeat armor. Mobility could overcome firepower. The vehicle's legacy influenced American armor development for decades. Company C's performance at Arracourt validated everything tank destroyer advocates believed. Light armor, high speed, aggressive tactics, hit and run. The critics who called the M18 a paper coffin were wrong. The crews who learned to use speed as armor were right. And men like Hartman proved that training and tactics matter more than technical specifications. Today, a memorial stands in Arracourt honoring the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion. The inscription describes their role in the town's liberation. September 1944. American tank destroyers defeated German armored forces, saved thousands of civilian lives, helped end the war. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor, hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Stories about tank crews who saved lives with speed and courage. Real people. Real heroism. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia? Our community stretches across the entire world. You're not just a viewer. You're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching. And thank you for making sure Sergeant Henry Hartman and the men of the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion don't disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.